The country thought the nightmare was over. The shooter had been captured. The evidence looked airtight, and communities shaken by violence had just begun to breathe again. But then came a twist no one expected. Another arrest, one that doesn't just reopen wounds, but raises deeper questions about what really happened in the hours after Charlie Kirk's final speech. Tonight, we're going back to that day, to the crowded auditorium at Utah Valley University, to the moment the lights dimmed, the microphones buzzed, and thousands gathered to hear one of the most polarizing voices in American politics. A night that was supposed to be about speeches, applause, and heated debate, until it was shattered by a single rifle shot that silenced a man and shook a movement. Law enforcement launched a manhunt that gripped the nation. 33 tense hours of searching, tracking, and hoping they were one step ahead of a gunman who had already changed history. But while police were racing against time, someone else was working against them, deliberately, sending investigators on a false trail at the very moment when every second mattered most. Prosecutors now say this was not a misunderstanding. It was an intentional act meant to interfere with justice, a decision that could have cost more lives, delayed the capture, and maybe even let the gunman slip away. So ask yourself, what happens when false claims steal precious hours in the middle of a crisis? How many lives are put at risk when deception enters the picture while an entire country mourns? And what does it mean when law enforcement must chase lies as well as criminals? According to charging documents, the man accused of making that false claim is 71-year-old George Hodgson Zinn. Investigators allege that he came forward claiming he was the shooter just hours after the assassination. But prosecutors argue this wasn't confusion, it was deliberate sabotage. His actions forced police to divert resources, question his story, and check his alibi, all while the real suspect remained on the run. Think about what that means. While families lit candles and prayed, while students sat frozen in fear, while police knocked on doors across Utah, time was being wasted. Time that could have given the killer room to escape, regroup, or even strike again. Authorities are now charging Zinn with obstruction of justice and other serious crimes. They say his actions didn't just waste hours, they put an entire community in danger. And his arrest has forced investigators to reopen every detail of those first 24 hours. Who was helping? Who was hindering? And how many other false trails were laid in the chaos that followed Kirk's death? Meanwhile, forensic teams combed through the crime scene with relentless precision. On a rooftop across from the auditorium, they discovered the rifle, a towel, tools, and shell casings. Every item was tagged, swabbed, and sent to the lab. The results were damning. DNA matched 22-year-old Tyler James Robinson. Ballistics confirmed the fatal shot came from that rooftop. But the physical evidence was only part of the story. Digital footprints told the rest. Investigators uncovered messages in which Robinson hinted at what he planned to do. A note on his keyboard spoke of an opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk. Discord messages revealed warnings to friends and even an eerie confession, "It was me at UVU yesterday." What kind of mindset writes something like that? What drives a 22-year-old student, someone with a future, a family, a life ahead of him, to cross into violence? Detectives say Robinson's online world showed troubling signs. He spent time in digital spaces that reinforced anger, isolation, and resentment. His messages grew darker in tone, more hostile, more final. Experts now warn that online echo chambers can intensify anger until it spills into real-world violence. But motive remains a mystery. Was Robinson driven by ideology, by personal grievance, or by a combination of both? Prosecutors call it deliberate and planned, but the why continues to hang heavy over this case. And that's what unsettles a grieving nation. Because if Robinson was radicalized, influenced, or even encouraged by voices around him, whether online or in real life, then this tragedy isn't just about one man and one gun. It's about the system that failed to catch him before he acted. As the trial approaches, prosecutors are preparing to seek the death penalty. The evidence is strong: DNA, ballistics, digital confessions. But Robinson's defense team will fight, and the courtroom battle promises to be one of the most closely watched in years. Outside the legal arena, the ripple effects are enormous. For Turning Point USA, Kirk's death was a devastating blow. For students and families who were in the auditorium that night, it has left scars, panic, sleepless nights, fear of public spaces. For Kirk's family, the pain is fresh and unrelenting. And for the country, the debates rage on. How do we protect public figures? How do we safeguard free speech without silencing it under threat? How do we stop anger from becoming violence? The arrest of George Hodgson Zinn is a chilling reminder that danger doesn't always come from the gunman alone. Sometimes it comes from those who mislead, distract, and obstruct justice when every second is life or death. The story is far from finished. Each week brings new details, new questions, and new revelations. And as the trial unfolds, investigators will continue to peel back the layers to ensure everyone who played a role is held accountable. For now, one thing is clear. This was not just a shooting. It was a warning about the anger simmering in American life, a warning about how vulnerable our institutions really are, and a warning about how fast lies, hate, and influence can turn into irreversible tragedy. Stay with us as we continue to track every development, every courtroom update, and every hidden truth this case brings to light. Because justice doesn't end with one arrest, and this story is far from over.